Hi, and welcome to the Plumbers of Data Science podcast. I'm your host, Andreas Kretz, and today we are talking about the old topic, is the highest paying job the best job? That is something that a lot of people look at. They look at the money they get, which might not be the one thing that you should look out for. Right? Now, of course, I know also for my students, a lot of people ask, okay, my ultimate goal is to get into FANG, and to get a FANG company. So basically Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Right? Because these have very high pay grades. Even as a beginner, you can start very high there. And also they have a high reputation. Right? So from the sense of, if I got into there, it's very easy to get a job somewhere else. Right? So that's something that I hear a lot of time from my students. Now, to answer this, I think we should look at a few topics. And the one thing that I want to tell you is, okay, when you look at it, don't just look at the money. Because the ultimate thing is, how much are we working? For how long? 30, 40 years, depending on how long you work in your country and depending on how much money you make. We're going to do something. You're going to do something every day. You're going to go to work and you're going to need to do this. Do you enjoy it? What are you enjoying? Right? So if you're a developer, you enjoy coding, you love coding a lot, then it might make sense for you to stay in this role, right? Because you could also look at the other topic. The more you get promoted, the more you will go into a senior role, into a leadership role, into a team lead role, which then will be a lot of time for you spent on management, on meetings, on the not so productive coding stuff, or different than coding. And if you really like coding, this might be ultimately terrible for you. Also, you will most likely get into trouble or into the topic of like the corporate back and forth, which can be really annoying. And so this is something you need to keep in mind. What are you enjoying? What do you want to do? I've seen people who went into team lead positions and then went back because they didn't like it. It's nothing for them. I myself was in a position where I basically went from developer to team lead. And I did this for many years, but then the corporate stuff got to me, and it made me sick. Me personally, my health was deteriorating, and I needed to do something different. That's when I decided back in the day to start my academy. But ultimately, this was because I got into the position, although I was making a lot of more money, I got into the position where I didn't enjoy what I do. Up to the point that it was so stressful and so annoying and that it made me sick. Right? So keep that in mind. What are you enjoying? Which part of your job are you enjoying? And can you focus on that? Can you get into a senior role, for instance, in that senior role? Maybe have a few people, if it's team lead, that you enjoy working with. Can you still in that position do a lot of coding, be involved in the day-to-day development? That is something that might be important. So keep that in mind. That's one of the things, that money isn't everything. My point here, of course, you need a certain amount of money to earn a good living and to not then be poor when you want to retire. But like, especially in the beginning, in the early few years, like, what do you enjoy? Follow what you enjoy. And the other stuff, and I already hinted to this a bit, when you look at what is the environment that you're working with. FANG is big corp, right? And there are a lot of big corporations out there that have engineers and employ engineers. And on the other side, there's a more of a startup culture, right? Startup, smaller companies who do something new. And there's a big difference between these two fields. Startup environment most likely is going to pay you a lot less than landing in big corp, but that's not always. Like here in Germany, big corps are not paying that much as well. But like generally, startup most likely is going to be It's going to be lower from pay grade. On the other side, you have more opportunity there. You most likely are going to start in greenfield. On a greenfield, you can have a lot of freedom from what you're building, from the solution that's going to get developed. You can really move something. You have a high impact there. That's something very important for me, for instance. That was something very important. I need to have the feeling that I have a high impact on the whole project, on what moves the company forward. I need to have my freedom to actually think about solutions and then implement these solutions. That's with the greenfield stuff as well, right? So that startup environment is very different. Of course, you most likely, once you're in that startup, if you want to have a job change, you need to actually change the company. Whereas in a big corp, there are always other departments that you might find another job and stay within the company and still have your friends around you. But so startup, let's talk a bit more about big corp. As I said, most likely you have more flexibility. You don't need to change to another company. But also within big corp, the thing is usually the work is more compartmentalized. You don't have that big freedom. You are in a environment where there's already a lot there, and you're in charge of a few pipelines or developing a few pipelines, and you're doing the ops as well and the bug fixing and so on. But you don't have that big picture. You have more that compartmentalized view, that specialized view, which might not be what you want, right? So it's going to most likely pay a lot, if especially FANG, but you can't move a lot. That's also, I said, high impact for startup. In big corp, you usually have low impact. The thing that you are working on, you might have a high impact on the actual thing that you're working on, but looking at the grand scheme of the company, most likely minimal, with minimal impact. Also, then there's the whole thing of rules and regulations. These big corps, and you can tell me whatever you want if you're in a FANG company, and let me know in the comments on YouTube, for instance, if you are working in big corp, are there many rules and regulations? How do you feel about the rules and regulations? I know there are a lot of rules and regulations in big corp, and that is something very difficult, can be very annoying, especially if you're a startup guy, right? Especially if you want to have high impact, if you want to think about your own solutions and then implement them. That is something very difficult, can be something very annoying. And also the thing was, people were talking about big corp, you have the job security. I think nowadays, when you look at, especially in our field, especially in the computer science or the whole industries of social media and data analytics and so on, there is a lot of fluctuation. People get laid off a lot. So I think even the job security isn't there anymore. Right? So take a look at these three things. Think about this. Is the highest paying job the best? From what do I like? What is the thing that interests me? Do I like coding? Do I like leadership? Do I like management? If you're a senior person, do I want to make that switch to team lead, to department head? Yes, it will bring more money, but is that really what you want to do? Or if you're in that position, or do I maybe want to go back and do something I enjoy? It's very important. Like, I made that step. For me, it was a downgrade at first when I quit my job and started with the academy. But I did this out of passion. I liked it. And I still like it. Work every day with the students, on the material for the students. And working, now that I have a full-time employee, working with her on all these topics, I think, and also creating like this podcast, I really like it. And so that's one thing you need to think about. Do you enjoy what you do? Or what are you enjoying? And is the setup the right thing for you? Are you going to make a lot more money in big corp, but you don't like the setup of this? You don't like that it's very compartmentalized, that you have a lot of rules and regulations, that you can't really have an impact in the whole company output? Might be problematic. Startup, do you really like working on the green field? Like, there are people that want to have want to be developers who want to have their to-do list. They want to have the goals laid out and they just want to develop it. And there's nothing wrong with it. For these people, the startup environment where that is very flexible, that might be changed from one day to the other, can be really annoying, right? So keep these two things in mind. Is the setup the right setup for you? Are you in the right environment? And are you enjoying what you do? I think these are the two main things. The money, there's always the thing with the money is always the taxes. I know we shouldn't argue about taxes, but there's nothing is certain except death and taxes. And the taxes are very high. If you make a lot of money, are very high. I actually looked at this in Germany. Like, if you make 100,000 euros a year, it's 36% taxes. And if you're making 250, it's 43% taxes. And like, we know people that are in FANG and they make 500,000 euros or dollars, and they are paying 46% taxes, right? So that's also something. It's not that because you're not going to take that money home. The taxes are going to increase the more money you're making, and the difference will be getting smaller. Of course, it's still a lot, right? It's still a lot more. But like, do you really need this? Is the environment right? Are you enjoying what you do? Like, think of this. Okay, let me know in the comments what you think. If you see this on YouTube, otherwise, you can always get in touch on X. And yeah, see you on the next episode.